Hi, everybody. It's Professor Veit, one of the evidence-based practice with groups. I'm one of the instructors of our very large course team for the online program. So I think maybe your instructor, or maybe I've said it along the way, that we might be taking turns filming the videos. Um, this is my first time using a background, and normally I'm in my home office, which is also our guest room. And this is just really interesting because the waves are really in the background. It's kind of, uh, I don't know, feeling a little bit beachy. So hopefully, maybe you feel a little beachy as well, or maybe where you are, you have a beach. Who knows? But just a couple of things as we kick off this fall semester, uh, we have a soft start. Okay, so module one and module two aren't really that heavy as we kind of prepare to dive right into the heart and soul of our class. So we are gearing up with the leadership component of our class, where there's lots to learn about being a leader. And we're going to do our best as a course team to help guide you through the leadership process, as we go. But part of learning to be a leader is trial and error. There's really no formula that sets you up to be the best leader ever. I don't really know that any of us are striving for perfection. I think it's just doing our best. And part of doing our best is just learning our style. If it's you are uncomfortable with silence in the group and you are like, what do I say? That's normal. And really just, how do I sit in the silence and wait for group members to step up? It's organic. A lot of times it will just take shape. So this semester, you're going to get a chance to practice being the leader of the group and preparing for that leadership role and really looking at how I present as a leader. And I want you to think about the group process in different capacities. So I think when we think about this class, we think you know, traditional groups of social work or the counseling or therapeutic type of setting. But I think that in our profession, there are different types of groups we are in, whether we are in a micro, so more clinical setting, or a macro setting, like a nonprofit, organizational leadership. Um, we are oftentimes working on a team to make decisions. So if you are a macro social worker and you're working on a grant or you're working to change policies or do presentations to gear up to change policies and you're on a team, we're still working with humans. Okay. And humans come with personalities. And while it might not be, I'm leading a therapy group or I'm leading a support group when working on a task, working on or within a task group, more of that OL, organizational leadership component. If you're the leader, you're still going to be working with some of your leadership qualities because you're making decisions. Humans disagree. Just humans on a superficial level bring their stuff. We bring our suitcase full of experiences, life situations. So this class really can cross cover a lot of different settings. Um, Multidisciplinary teams or interdisciplinary teams at in medical social work settings. So I used to work in medical social work, and it was every bit of a collective approach to client or patient-centered care. So in the hospital setting, we used patient-centered care. and care coordination, which included the nurses, the doctors, the social workers, sometimes the chaplain, and everybody had to play a role. And it was, patient-centered. Still deciding we can share that role, or I'm going to play this role, and really have discussions around what does that look like? Could we overlap in any roles? Will we be disagreeing, right? Like, well, that we have to make sure that the information we're giving the patient is the same. So just, I want you to think kind of in a more general sense. Okay. So going to be pulling up, backing up a little bit. So in the meantime, as we kind of take a soft start or approach to this semester, get ahead on reading the Schopenhauer Cure. Okay. The assignment rubric, you can be working on it all along, honestly, as the terms come up, like therapeutic factors, challenging group members, transference, transparency, all the things. Be looking for those. I think that if you kind of just maybe even read ahead in the textbook, you're going to know what transparency looks like. Maybe you've already had an experience with transference and countertransference. So just kind of be jotting down notes as you read. The first assignment that kicks off our semester is that leadership self-assessment assignment, the reflection of really just looking at our leadership skills, what we think we are going to be like, maybe what we've been like. And again, I want you to think about a leadership role in any capacity. Let's think you were the team captain of the cross country team, let's say, and you had to lead your team each week, increasing morale, helping support people as they go through both high school stuff and cross country. I know this is kind of like a watered down version, that type of, leadership role. You were the youth group leader, you were a youth minister, you worked on any sort of team in a job that is not social work related, right? So again, this class we're going to be leading, or you all are going to be leading and be members of more of a supportive type group, not a therapy group. So look back. You maybe worked at a news station. I don't know. I'm throwing things out here, but you can look back on those experiences as well as you reflect on your leadership qualities. So as we take what I would call a soft start into the semester, there's still plenty you can be doing to set yourself up for a great semester. Okay. So I'm going to pull up group leadership. Okay, so we're going to dive into what it looks like to play the group leadership role, or to step into the group leadership role. So if you're a beginning group leader, let's just talk about in our profession, in your internships, what have you, there might be that initial anxiety before leading your first group. I would like to say, and a lot of us say, that moderate anxiety could be beneficial. It could lead to honest self-appraisal. Obviously, we want to watch that anxiety because it can also easily turn into something else that leads to an activity if we don't find ways of managing our anxiety. So I know sometimes a little bit of anxiety fuels me up, but I really have to watch it. Being an anxious person and wanting to do things right, I really have to make sure that I'm managing my own personal anxiety. And we want to examine, that internal dialogue and our own distortions around leading people effectively. Meaning, I'm not good at conflict. What if something happens? How will I handle it? What does that look like? I'm not good at conflict. That would be a distortion. Well, we're really going to want to challenge those distortions and see how those thoughts can influence our behaviors. If we go into a group thinking, I'm not going to be good at it, chances are you'll be okay. You'll make mistakes. But if you already have that mindset, then it's sometimes hard to change. And we listen to that internal dialogue versus going in with I'm nervous. I'm a little bit anxious. I don't know what to expect, but I'm going to do my best to bring the best version of myself and go from there. So again, what's going to impact your ability to be present in the group process? So take a moment and just think, what are your thoughts on this? What could hold you back? Still be successful, but just take a moment to reflect. We are people, we are human. We bring ourselves to every group, our personal thoughts, our strengths, maybe our weaknesses, our values, life experiences, assumptions, and our own biases. And sometimes we think, gosh, I've worked so hard to eliminate some of these biases or assumptions around individuals, communities, groups of people. Inevitably, it might come up. It might come up. You may have a personal bias that is challenged that you didn't even know you had. That's okay. We are always striving to be growth oriented to promote the growth in others. And it's important to model those effective behaviors in the group process. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit more about effective behaviors and strategies. Effective personality and character traits of group leaders. We have a lot going on in our own lives, most likely, and we're going to have to show up and be emotionally available and be present for our group members. If there's anything on your mind as you go into the group process, maybe taking some time to like, all right, I got to get it in check. I've got to switch gears. I can put this in a container and enter into the group process. We come with some personal power, and this is an acknowledgement of the awareness of our influence on others and sometimes the group leaders. Just as you want to make a good impression on the group as a whole, member to member, a lot of times members want to make a group impression. Sometimes members might even want to please you. If the group members have to be there, it's a mandatory group, let's say, we have a lot of power. We help decide if they are going to maybe advance to the next parenting class to get their kids back. We recommend, yeah, Katie Veit is ready to move to getting to the parenting classes in order to move the process of getting her kids back. That's a lot of power we hold. Okay, so we just really have to watch that power dynamic. Courage. Taking risks in the group process takes courage, and not hiding behind the role of the leader can inspire others to do the same. So having courage to say, time out. I can feel the energy getting a little tense, calling it what it is. Let's take a moment to kind of take a deep breath, sit in our bodies, and kind of just collect our thoughts so that we can move on. Wanting to challenge ourselves, including just gaining self-awareness and again, challenging your own bias. So I call it just kind of living in your frontal lobe almost. We're just sort of like looking in and just being extra self-aware of our own body language, our language in general, how we communicate, and really just reading the audience and maybe even the energy of the room. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Sincerity and authenticity, engaging in a direct interest of the well-being of the group members and not hiding behind facades. Okay, so trying to show up as our most authentic selves as best we can, not to maybe let the guard down, but just show that human side of being present. A sense of identity, maybe a clear sense of your own. I'm going to move my head over here. Your own self to promote sense of self in others. A belief in the group process, and enthusiasm. If you believe in the group, participants can sometimes feel that energy. Hey, we're with each other for 12 weeks. We're going to be going over some tough stuff. We're going to be learning about each other, but I'm excited about this process. I want to be here. I want to help you all grow. I want to grow because I believe in this group process. Take a little sip of water. The sun is shining so brightly from the beach setting. I need a little bit of water. Inattentiveness and creativity. So again, not always being ritualistic, and instead adapt to the needs of others. So this is how we open it. This is how we close it. This is what we do. It's good to have a sense of kind of structure, but maybe kind of, we're going to open it up a different way today. Okay, we're going to spend some time in the middle of our group process doing some deep breathing because last week got a little tense. Self-care. I think in this program, maybe, hopefully, we've talked a lot about caring for yourself and what that looks like. And that just means being able to show up in the long run and looking at, compassion fatigue and burnout. And when we feel, a sense of exhaustion after each group, is there 15 minutes after that group that we can just kind of sit in silence with ourselves and just kind of, okay, now I've got to go see individual clients. I need to take 5 minutes. It was a really tense group. It was awesome, but it was a little bit heavy. I need to kind of switch gears because now I'm going to go see some individuals, or now I'm going to go home and I'm going to have a roommate or a partner or a spouse or kids, or I'm going to be caring for somebody at home. We got to look at how we are committed to taking care of ourselves as well. Oops. Going over back over here, getting back on that one. A portrait of a highly effective therapist. Okay, so again, we're not striving to arrive. We are always on a journey to get there. So yes, we're going to be looking at how to master some of those leadership skills, but there are going to be things we learn over the years as a group leader, as an individual therapist, as a task meeting member, that we're going to change. Inability to deeply enter the world of another without losing our sense of self. That kind of speaks back to that self-compassion, or compassion fatigue, as I have, just having self-compassion and watching that compassion fatigue, where we're taking on a lot of stuff. We got to remember who we are. We are every day or every group, what have you, doing our best to provide an emotionally safe space for the clients while also challenging them along the way. So sometimes, again, the safety of the group as a whole can be threatened if there is a moment where somebody is like, I don't agree. I feel offended. I don't understand what you just said, but it seemed a little bit microaggressive in nature. And the group kind of changes, the energy changes. And we do our best to keep a sense of safety of like, we hear you, or that makes sense. So and so, can you clarify what you mean? It sounds as though Katie Veit felt as though that phrase or that terminology was offensive. It might have even hurt them. Not going to speak for people. Let's get back on track by acknowledging what's going on and trying to provide a safe environment. We touched on that therapeutic power a little earlier, but just maintaining that sense of humility of self. Integration of both our personal and professional selves with clear boundaries between each dimension. Chances are you've talked about boundaries, both personal and professional, in your life and what that looks like. Maybe one of the boundaries as a leader is, hey, we can't communicate outside of the group process. So if you're needing further support, who are those support persons? Because after 8 p.m. tonight, until we meet again next week from 6:30 to 8, I won't be available. I see that you were very emotionally charged. It was a hard conversation. Who are you going to lean on? Okay. The ability to nurture others while also caring for ourselves. The ability to accept feedback without becoming destabilized. So I know that when I receive feedback at the end of each semester, I have to keep my eyes open and say, just because a student didn't like this topic or didn't like this assignment, maybe that means they don't like me. But they're giving me feedback that that assignment or that class or what have you did not help promote growth. Sometimes it's personality. I know my personality, it's not for everybody. So I really try to temper it. As my kids say, you're so excited and enthusiastic. And I'm like, what is wrong with that? But sometimes I have to say, okay, dial it back a little, just kind of to pull it back, read the room. And just like when I'm leading groups of students too, I have to watch that. I tend to be really positive and err on the side of like, we can do hard things. It's going to be hard. We can do it. And sometimes it's like, no, it's too hard. It's going to be hard to do it. Will it get done? And so just trying to maintain a balance of like not overly hopeful, trying to explain this, but also providing a little bit of hope. And we're going to be talking about that installation of hope when we get to those therapeutic factors in a couple of weeks. Sounds easy. No, it doesn't. Um, we're just considering our personal qualities on a continuum. Constantly exploring authenticity is going to be a key aspect of growth as a leader. Once again, how we show up, what do we bring? Once we have arrived, you know, let me read that. There's no place to go. So again, we arrive somewhere and we've got to keep going. So maybe we arrive, we take a step back, we sit kind of like, okay, we've learned a new skill, onward and upward. Now we need to learn how to utilize some CBT techniques in a group process. So we've arrived here, and change gears and continue on our journey. Special issues for beginning group leadership. So self-disclosure. And we're going to be talking about this further along around transparency. What's appropriate? When is it appropriate? Too much disclosure, too little disclosure, and just really being mindful of our audience. If I disclose this, will it make people uncomfortable? Sometimes in our profession, we see that those who are drawn to our profession have had some sort of experience that led them to want to be in the helping profession, or they've had some sort of experience where they have seen somebody receive support from a helping profession. Okay. Let's say you're working in substance use disorders. We see that it's really common for the leaders of groups to disclose, I'm in recovery, or I'm in the recovery process. And really just reading the room to talk about, when do we tell our story? Was that enough disclosure? And asking ourselves, was that for me or is that for them? Okay, what does that look like? And so just being mindful of what we say and when we say it. Again, we're going to be talking a lot about disclosure and transparency down the way. We've touched on it in these Corey chapters. And when will it work? How could it encourage somebody? How could it feel supportive? How will it land when we maybe share a part of our story that's appropriate for the group process? Essential leadership skills, and these can cross over into being an individual therapist, to being on a task group, even where we're paying total attention to the speaker who's showing up with verbal and nonverbal cues. So that active listening. Sometimes we are restating, so we're maybe paraphrasing what someone said, if maybe we are unclear, and so we are saying, what I think I heard you said was, clarifying, kind of when restating, but maybe with restating, you kind of restate what they said in a more detailed way. Whereas clarifying, I think I heard you say you were angry, or I think I heard you express your anger. And the person's like, that's actually sadness. Okay, that's how they sound when they're sad. Summarizing, pulling together important aspects of group interaction. This week was a great group. Let me summarize the 5 themes I heard everybody kind of collectively talk about. They need more support in their home environment, let's say, and just kind of pulling it all together. Maybe even questioning, and not like rapid fire, really watching, not going into the interview process, but asking open-ended questions that provide value and meaning. Okay, so maybe how they're perceiving what someone is presenting on, or working on. Katie Veit, you mentioned that you were really exhausted after that last session. Just curious if you want to share and then open it up to um, how you handled that situation afterwards, or how did you take care of yourself? Anybody else in the group have a similar situation? Please share. So just to promote more dialogue within the group process. Interpreting. So oftentimes the leaders interprets and offers possible explanation for a participant's thoughts, feelings, or actions. Maybe, it sounds like you are kind of a little bit burnt out in your job. Um, I'm curious if it's because you're working overtime. Confronting, and we're going to be talking about confrontation, but compassionately and powerfully challenging individuals. We've got to really be mindful of what that looks like and how to challenge individuals. So again, down the way, reflecting feelings, responding to the essence of what an individual has communicated is going to show that we're paying attention. We are interested in what an individual has to say. Maybe we have an understanding for the person and fosters further feelings and connection. I know that sometimes when I am feeling some countertransference, that person is reminding me of somebody that has rubbed me the wrong way. I have to really lean into checking myself and make sure that I'm still being compassionate. I'm still giving an individual the attention that they need. This is something I like. I'm like, they remind me of somebody that hurt my feelings. But countertransference can come up where somebody can remind us of somebody that hurt us in the past, and really just trying to foster some sense of connection, supporting an individual after a painful disclosure. Gosh, Anna, we can see that after you disclose that, you are weeping. I'm sorry that you are weeping, but I'm grateful that you shared your story, even though it was painful. We, as a group, I'm going to open it up. Does anybody have any words of affirmation for Anna? Empathizing, caring for the members and sensitively grasping the subjective world of the participant while maintaining separateness. Okay, so that accurate empathy feels like, oh gosh, I've been through that. I know what they're going through. Ooh, dial back. Okay, Anna, gosh, I can absolutely empathize with you, those feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. How can we care for you best? Switching gears, where Anna has said she's helpless and hopeless. Maybe you felt that. Maybe group members have felt that. What's another time anybody else has felt helpless or hopeless while us maintaining our professional boundaries and watching any disclosure? Facilitating, opening up clear and direct communication among the group members. Initiating, using catalysts to get the members to focus on meaningful work. Setting goals. Helping group members set and clarify their own goals and then modify when necessary. This looks differently for every group process, but maybe at the beginning, hey, we're going to be here for 12 weeks together. Is there a specific goal you hope to get out of this? Or do you have a goal in mind? And I've heard people say, I just want to get to know people outside of my regular life. I want to be able to be here an hour and a half, leave this behind, come and share what I need to share, but I have no responsibility outside of this group. That's all. That's awesome. Right? Okay. That's where that person is. Evaluating, appraising the ongoing group, what that looks like as we constantly evaluate how it's going. Giving feedback, expression of concrete and honest reactions based on the observation of behaviors. Giving feedback might be within the group process. It might be that you are giving somebody feedback one-on-one, so it's not to call them out. There are times where giving feedback or maybe safely confronting somebody could help the group process. This person's hijacking the group. I'm going to give them a little feedback. Hey, before you give us your narrative, I'm going to pause because you've given us a lot. And I'm going to switch gears to Melanie because Melanie has raised her hand. It looks like she has something to say. Maybe suggesting. We're not in the business of offering too much advice and information. But sometimes we have to suggest to somebody, and this is one-on-one, hey, I just want you to kind of take a look at how you presented in the group process. There was a moment there where you shut down Melanie. I don't know if you noticed it at all, but you cut Melanie off and launched into your own story, and Melanie did not speak the rest of the meeting. I would love to help you work on your active listening skills so that we all have a collective chance to share our stories, grow, and learn from the group process. The arrow. Protecting. Safeguarding members from unnecessary risks, okay? And that might be, whoa, we've taken it to the next level of disclosure. I can see that people are getting uncomfortable. Let's take a break. Let's regroup. Okay, the tension's getting a little bit higher in here and we want to keep talking, but let's take a break. We've already talked about disclosure. We're going to go into that more down the way in a few modules. Modeling. Demonstrating desired behavior through our own actions. And this is also part of the therapeutic factors, but how are we including a member that we can see is driving everybody crazy? And that might be, hey, we hear you, hang on. Melanie, would you like to speak? And modeling, hey, we hear you, but you've been on a soapbox. So let's pause and let somebody else have the time to talk. Linking, okay? I think this one is one way to build cohesion, and we're going to be talking about that, but connecting the work that members are doing to common things occurring in the group. Pat, Javonda, it sounds like you guys have a lot in common when it comes to your home environment. You guys have said different things around how you strategize, navigating, leaving the stressful environment and going back. So I'm wondering, maybe you guys could share a little bit more. Blocking, that intervention to try to stop counterproductive behavior. And blocking might look like literally I do blocking sometimes when I will turn and face and say, hey, we hear you. And we see that you are passionate about what you have to say because your volume has gone up. Given that these walls are thin and this is a confidential space, I'm going to see if we can take a pause, take a deep breath, and just kind of self-examine what's making our volume go up. Passionate volume isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. That could be cultural. That could be spiritual in nature. That could be a family norm where you literally spent your whole life in a family system where you were just you had to get louder and louder to make your point. Not a bad thing. It can shut a group down. Sometimes I'll clarify, I don't know if this is passion or frustration, but I can sense the energy changing. If you're in rolly chairs, let's say, people scoot back sometimes. If you're over Zoom, sometimes people shut their camera off to protect their nonverbal of like, I don't know what to say. So those are examples for blocking. And again, I'm not like pushing my hands up. Sometimes I'm just like, hey, kind of like a safe stop sign. Hey, we hear you. So do the people next door. That can just be sometimes a way, just an organic, just logistical piece of the volume of how we maybe argue, and try to of like the group going on next door is in a safe space as well. So we've got to do our best to protect them as well. Terminating, preparing to close the session, the group as a whole. This might be session 1 of a 12-week session. We end in 12 weeks. I want to make sure, my co-leader and I want to make sure that you have the most fruitful sessions, group experience that you can. So just remember that we have 12 weeks to talk about A, B, and C. And then sometimes 2 or 3 weeks before we end of just a reminder, oh my gosh, it is the 9th session. We are on our 9th group process. That means we only have 3 more weeks. So if you've been thinking about sharing your experience, it's not mandatory, or giving someone feedback or telling us something. We have about 3 weeks to either hear your story or offer you feedback if that is what you desire. Opening a group, maybe you're asking what individuals want to get from that session. Maybe you are asking about reactions to the previous group meeting. Hey, we had to cut time, an hour and a half flew by. We had to quickly leave. We're going to pick up where we left off. Before we do that, does anybody have any thoughts or feelings or ideas? Sometimes we ask individuals to report on their progress or difficulties they experienced during the week. All right, we're in a group of a support group for single parents who have 2 or 3 more kids, 2 or 3 kids in the household, 1 kid, 2 kid, 3 kids, let's say. And it's really challenging. Okay, they're here to get a support for their child who, I know local support group is single parents who are caring for a child on the autism spectrum while caring for other children. You leave here and chances are you go home. Maybe you take a drive around the block. What was your week like? Those strategies we talked about last week that somebody else shared, Joe told us about, what did it look like? In an open group where people can come and go, we're constantly introducing. Hey, looks like we have someone that just joined us. We're going to go around, introduce ourselves, maybe talk about what we've learned in a minute or less from this group. Open groups can be substance use groups, AA, NA. They can sometimes be a group for, there's Overeaters Anonymous. Within a hospital setting, somebody comes into the hospital, they join a group, somebody leaves the hospital. They, constantly open, person's leaving, hello, goodbye. You may have some observations from the previous week that you highlight of, man, that was great work. Oh, it was heavy. It was heavy, but it was really good work. Oftentimes, when we are doing life in this group process, talking about the heavy, I really want to thank everybody for being part of that group. Being part of a group process doesn't mean you have to share. Being part of that group process means you're present. You're present, and your nonverbal communication is a form of communication. You being a part of this group and showing up is participating in the group process. So really reminding individuals that if they have not told a story and they're like, that person has it so much worse, and I hear you so-and-so, that's still participating. Yes, we want to hear from them, but sometimes just being present is part of it. Closing a group, trying to allow time for integrating what has occurred in the group, reflecting on the experience, maybe offering like between now and the next session, if you could fill out that thought record, Maybe you want to check on everybody midway through the group process, where it's like, oh, we've been an hour, 45 minutes, we've got another 45 minutes to process, which is going to go by quickly. We would like to strive. It doesn't always happen, maybe to close the session without closing the issues raised in that session. If you're somebody that is like so uncomfortable with conflict and confrontation, it'd be easy to be like, that was productive. Might not be easy, but it might be our natural reaction to go, oh, today was really hard and glad we talked about it. Next week, we're going to continue. If everybody would like to continue. Or if you as the leader are like, you know what, we've got to continue this discussion in order to maintain cohesion and a sense of safety, we're going to need to revisit. We can use an effective tool to close the meeting. We could use guided meditation, no guided medication. That just about came out of my mouth. Guided meditation, asking people what they felt, focusing on positive feedback, etc. Developing your own leadership styles. So again, we've talked a little bit about that. We come as humans, we bring our own backgrounds, our worldviews, we've got talents and skills. So we also bring just our natural ability to engage, right? We want to be aware of the diverse range of theories of group counseling and implications for the styles of leading, okay? Constantly doing self-evaluation and what that looked like. Sometimes the short-term nature or long-term nature of the group is going to determine our leadership style, how involved we have to be. Let's recap from last week. We have a new person. Here's what we're doing. Here's copies of what we did. Let me know if you have any questions. Here's somebody that's going to help you along the way, kind of spending time and energy. If you're saying goodbye to somebody because they're leaving or discharging, acknowledging that. If we know they're discharging the hospital, welcoming new individuals, you're kind of trying to facilitate in a inclusive, maybe somebody's terminating, etc. And that was just speaking to that short-term group of that structured process, and current issues, because if somebody's new, they don't want to be at the hospital. They don't want to be in this group. They were admitted against their own free will. They're 14. They do not like that their school is they have to be there before they go back to school. At school, they said that they were suicidal. The school guidance counselor was like, I think we need to go inpatient, and the student doesn't want to. We do not want to be there. We are trying to manage lots of different levels of emotions, but also where somebody's at in the process of the group or the hospital process, etc. That was an example of inpatient. Again, being more active in these short-term groups because of the necessity of attending foregoing tasks within short-term duration. So sometimes we don't have a lot of time. Sometimes in the inpatient, we've got about 45 minutes to present this skill to these group members before they leave the hospital. We need to talk about challenging those thoughts that can come when we have depression that influence behavior. So we're trying to quickly teach somebody that our thoughts really do influence our behaviors. Our minds, powerful, okay? And they can talk us into lots of different things. If self-distortion can say, I am not part of the team. No one is going to like me. I don't know how to do that skill. I'm just not going to go. I'm not going to go. We could be missing out. It could be absolutely true that the skill wasn't mastered and they didn't like it. But if they have to go to something, that's when it's like, okay, we heard that you have to go to the blankety blank blank at the College Guidance Center for 10 weeks so that we can make sure you're doing okay, both personally and educationally, something like that. Okay. I'm going to maximize the beach theme. There was lots of content in those Cori readings that are going to kind of apply in and out, but we went ahead and scanned all of them, put them in there. So if you are kind of like, where can we talk about that? Or are we talking about that? Probably we're going to get to it. There's a section, I think in one of the chapters on cultural competence of a leader within a group setting. That's going to be its own module on how to, as a group leader, bringing your own culture, race, ethnicity, maybe spiritual background, and have a very diverse group of individuals. Groups don't necessarily have to visually look diverse to be diverse. All the different stories are going to be a little bit different, making them diverse. Life experiences are going to be different. But if you are, let's say, working in the immigration support program here in Nashville, Tennessee, and you are leading a support group for Kurdish women, let's say, as they integrate into our societal norms, right? And part of that is their kid going to school. And I'm talking about Metro Public Schools just here in Nashville. And if their kid doesn't go to school, they're not used to sending them to school, or maybe they've done community schools, what have you, really working on your own. I know we have to do this in our culture, in this culture, in Davidson County, as a Davidson County resident, I'm of a different culture. I do not understand, let's say, maybe not sending your kid to school or not de-enrolling them in school. Because here in Nashville, if they are, every child's enrolled in school, and then you have to de-enroll. If you're not there and you are enrolled, truancy. Okay, that can be a Department of Children's Services issue. We want to protect an individual who's from a different set of rules, who's from another culture. Well, that punitive, somebody being like, hey, we have to come meet with you, that punitive type feeling of, I'm going to be punished for what has always been the norm in my culture. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. What else? Oh, I think at the beginning I said, get a start on the Schopenhauer cure. I should have said, get a start on whichever novel you picked. If you picked The Group, How a Bunch of Strangers Changed My Life, if you picked that group, or The Schopenhauer Cure, go ahead and start reading. If you haven't chosen which one you're going to do, really start to think about making a decision. A lot of students fly through them. They read both for the purpose of the paper. You do not need to pick. You don't need to write on both of them. I just wanted to hear from you on one of those books, okay? Or your professor, instructor only needs you to read one of those books, okay? All right. Leadership skills. Lots covered, lots more to learn, lots of different ways to practice linking and facilitating, clarifying, summarizing when you are the leader of the group process. So you are not being graded on, I think I just bombed that. It didn't go well. Your grade is not going to go down. Okay. This is practice. We want you to do your best. Part of the assignment is filling out the assessment form when you're the leader and when you're a group member. Part of that leadership self-assessment form is telling your professor, when we're reading it, I don't feel confident. I don't feel like I had enough questions. I didn't feel prepared. I didn't know what to do when it got silent. Different things that can come up in different platforms of leadership and group membership. The platform being via Zoom or whatever platform you're using, Microsoft Teams, what have you, and how you show up as leaders and members in those platforms. The module 1 kicks off on Tuesday. I'm blanking on the date. It's whatever day Tuesday is that module one starts in. Oh my goodness. Um, I love the waves. I think this might be my new background. I'm kind of liking the green tree. Not gonna lie, when I kind of saw my shirt was matchy matchy with the green tree, I was like, ooh, okay, okay. I'm kind of liking it. Take care of you, and I hope wherever you are, um, location wise or emotional wise, I hope you are doing okay. And I hope you're caring for yourself as best you can and remembering that micro self-care is what I kind of call it. If it's just like I can't do a guided meditation for an hour, I do have time every now and then to do a guided meditation for 10 minutes. And I kind of call that maybe spot checking or micro self-care. So I wish you well wherever you are in your week when you watch this video. I hope it's going okay. Thank you for getting to the end.